Welcome back to the double leg. I'm one half of the show, Hey Jai Picks. The other half of the show, the parlay. Joining me in, we're going to break down some UFC Vegas 74. Let's go. We are back after the weekend off. We no card last weekend. Well, I guess it's this weekend. We're recording this on Friday, but road to the UFC, no official card. It is what, Memorial Day weekend?
Yes, sir.
Or Labor Day, one of those. And we got UFC Vegas 74 coming back June 3rd, and a pretty solid card, honestly. I mean, the main event was supposed to be Jack Hermansson, Brendan Allen, but Hermansson had to withdraw. So we get a flyweight main event, Kai Kara-France, Amir Albazi, which honestly I'm not too mad about. That would have been a great co-main, but a solid main event as well. What do you think of the card? 13 fights. What's your initial thoughts?
I hope all 13 of them stick. I mean, I feel like we've been losing fights left and right on these cards, and coming off of a break, I would watch 30 fights in a row if we could next Saturday to make up for being off this week. I mean, these weeks we don't have fights just kills me for some reason, but there's some good matchups on this card. Like you said, 13 fights, decently long card, and the main event should be a good one. High level Kai Kara-France. Overall, man, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it as well. But without any further ado, we're going to go through the card and we're going to give our predictions. We're going to break down each fight individually. But if you want our bets for the card, you can join the Double Leg Premium down below. We'll put the link down below. You can see it in the banner down below as well. That is the premium membership. Less than $1 a day gets you for the full month. If you just want to wait till the end of the week, you can get our picks on Friday. They will go live then. You just want the week pass. So anything other than that, you can learn more about that once you click through it, but we don't want to waste too much of your time. We'll get into it with the main event. Kai Kara-France sitting at even money against Amir Albazi, even money as well. Odds are presented by BetOpenly. As always, over under 3.5 rounds, minus 160 for the over, plus 160 for the under. 16-1 Amir Albazi taking on the veteran Kai Kara-France, who's coming off a loss in the interim title fight to Brandon Moreno. If you look at who he's lost to in the past, 7 years, 6.5 years, it's Brandon Moreno and Brandon Royval. So if your name's Brandon, you can beat Kai Kara-France. But if you're not named Brandon, if you're Amir Albazi, and I gotta say, I mean, I feel like Kai Kara-France is getting a little underappreciated in this spot because Amir Albazi has had a lot of hype around him, and he's 4-0 in the UFC. But it seems like every time he gets matched up with a higher level opponent, they pull out or something happens where he can't fight him because he's had 4 fights and now he's fighting the guy that just fought for an interim title. So, I mean, he's getting the spots. He's been a big favorite in almost all of his fights. His 4 UFC wins, Malcolm Gordon in the debut, got the first round arm triangle choke, and then was scheduled against Holly and Paiva. And Paiva had to withdraw, scheduled against Zhalga Zhumagulov. That got canceled. And then he fought Zhumagulov, won by decision. Then was scheduled against Ode Osborne. And Albazi had to withdraw. And then scheduled against Tim Elliott, who's on this card. And Elliott withdrew. So then he had to fight Francisco Figueiredo, and he was a minus 500 favorite. Got the first round sub. And then he was scheduled against Alex Perez. Alex Perez withdrew. And then scheduled against Brandon Royval, and Brandon Royval withdrew. So then he had to fight Alessandro Costa, making his debut, and he's a minus 450 favorite. The level of competition just really isn't there for Amir Albazi, but I mean, he's gotten the job done in all 4 fights. I just don't know that I could back him at even money against a guy in Kai Kara-France who's been tested against the best of the best in the division. He's got wins over Askar Askarov, Cody Garbrandt, first round knockout. And the hands, I think the hands are going to be a little bit too much for Albazi on the feet. And I like Kai Kara-France's takedown defense as of late. Like him against Askar Askarov. Askarov can get you down and can hold you down, and he's got a great ground game. But Kai Kara-France kind of just stifled it and was able to win 2 rounds out of 3. And even against Brandon Moreno, like Moreno was pretty pieced up. Like even though he got the 3rd round TKO, Moreno was pieced up. Like he had that nasty gash under his eye, and if that liver kick doesn't land, who knows where we'd be sitting right now. But that's my lean right now. I got to go Kai Kara-France at even money. What do you think?
Exactly the same side. Pretty confidently too. I mean, there's a couple of factors, but the main being you touched on, Albazi hasn't fought anybody, and that's not his fault or anything. But I mean, going from his last fight against Alessandro Costa to Kai Kara-France is a world difference. I mean, it's a big difference. And like you said, man, Kai Kara-France has been getting better in that takedown defense department. And when he does get taken down, he can usually work himself back up to the feet. And he's fighting at such a high level. I mean, I know the Brandon Moreno TKO via, body kick didn't really look good. But go back to the first fight with Brandon Moreno in 2019. Moreno landed 91 strikes to Kai Kara-France's 82. Somewhat of a competitive fight on the feet. So if he's striking at that level, he should have the advantage against Albazi. And if he can just scramble and get back to his feet, make Albazi get a little more tired as this fight goes on, because it's a 5-round fight. We know Kai Kara-France has the cardio, the endurance. If he can just keep this thing on the fight for the majority of those 5 rounds, I think he gets it done. And another thing, man, when he lost to Royval by submission back in 2020, you could tell he was pissed in his next fight. He gets the 1st round KO, fights Cody Garbrandt the fight after that, 1st round KO, and then beats Askar Askarov, which I think Kai Kara-France was a pretty sizable dog in that fight, if I remember right. It was a good win there. So now he's coming off the loss to Moreno. That fire is going to be back. He's got a loss to avenge. He wants to get this thing right. So I feel sorry for Amir Albazi. Not only are you jumping up in competition big time, but you're getting Kai Kara-France coming off of a loss. And normally that doesn't end well for Kai Kara-France's opponents. I think Kara-France is locked in. He's got to get this win. I mean, props to him for even taking a fight against a prospect up-and-comer after you just fought for the belt. So he's willing to do anything to get back to that top spot. So yeah, man, I think this is Kai Kara-France written all over it.
I'm excited for it. Kai Kara-France always brings it, and I'm interested to see how Albazi can handle that high level of a fight. So I'm looking forward to it. I doubt it goes 5. Over unders at 3.5. I'd honestly lean under because both guys come to fight. So. Right. Featherweight bout here, Alex Caceres coming in at -162. Daniel Pineda +162. Over under 1.5 rounds, -180 for the over, +180 for the under. And Alex Caceres coming in here after a big head kick knockout to Julian Erosa, and that was a thing of beauty. And I was backing him there as the underdog. He's coming in as the favorite in this one against Daniel Pineda, who shocked a lot of people in his last time out at UFC San Antonio, when he was a 2-1 underdog and got the guillotine choke in round 2 against Tucker Lutz, who was the biggest favorite on the card, I believe. And man, I mean, he's got insane finishing ability. He cracked Tucker Lutz on the feet and then ultimately got him with the guillotine choke. The submission skills are there. The knockout skills are there. He's never won a fight by decision, which is pretty crazy. And you look at who he was beating before he got back in the UFC in his second stint in the UFC. Like they're both no contests for the PFL against Jeremy Kennedy and Movlid Khabibulaev, but he won both of those fights. They got overturned to a no contest because he popped for some substances. But Jeremy Kennedy just fought for the Bellator title, if I remember correctly, or he's very high up in the Bellator title race. And then Movlid Khabibulaev is still undefeated, 20-0. So I mean, he's looking to be a real threat for the PFL championship. So he's beating some pretty solid guys. Tucker Lutz was thought to be pretty solid, and he got a good price tag coming back there. But Pineda's 37, and he's getting Alex Caceres here who's kind of like borderline top 15, like just kind of outside the top 15. And it's an interesting fight because I think both guys have good grappling. I don't know if Caceres is a taller guy and can use his kicks and maybe stay at range, but he really thrives when he's on your back and looking for the submissions as well. But I don't know if he wants to mess around with that. So I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of leaning dog or pass in this one, just based off of the finishing ability with Pineda. Maybe you go Pineda inside the distance and just hope for that because he's never won a fight by decision. So yeah, I don't know if I could get behind Caceres at this price. What do you think?
I don't think I could at this price either, but I'm not really sold on Pineda. I mean, yeah, he got the finish against Tucker Lutz, but I think Lutz is more overrated than anything in that fight. And I mean, Pineda being a little bit older, coming off of steroids, obviously, he obviously had the great performance in his last fight. But I look at Caceres, and like you said, kind of borderline top 15. But if he beats Sadiq Yusuf in his second to last fight, which was a pretty close fight, I mean, look at the numbers. Both guys threw nearly the same strikes, and both guys had a takedown. But if he wins that fight, he's on a 7-fight win streak, which is insane. Like that's the most sneaky 6-1 record in that division right now is Alex Caceres. So yeah, man, I think I don't know if he gets enough credit for being, the good fighter he is. He's well rounded on the ground. He's good. The kicks, obviously, we saw what he did against Julian Erosa. But I mean, Julian Erosa also getting knocked out by dudes making their debut. So how much stock do you put into that? I don't know.
Not
But
the best shape.
I don't know. It's a weird one, man. It just depends on what Pineda's going to show up. Like we obviously saw him get the finish against Tucker Lutz, but at the end of the day, he is 37. He is coming off of those, suspension in the PFL for the banned substances. There's a chance he comes in there and he just doesn't look good. I think that's always a chance for guys at this age who have had this many fights and taken as much damage as he has. So, I mean, his first stint in the UFC, there's a lot of losses on that record. So I just don't know what's going to flip the switch now at 37 when you're coming off the juice and go in there and just dominate a guy like Caceres. But the line is, it's kind of borderline. Like you don't want to take Alex Caceres at minus 170-ish, minus 168. And at the same time, it's like there's so many unknowns right now with Pineda. So
Yeah.
I like this thing to end inside the distance. I really do. Both guys can crack. I mean, Pineda can crack and he can choke you out. I mean, kind of same thing with Caceres. So as far as a prediction, I'm going to go Alex Caceres. Not going to be betting on the money line. I do like the fight to end inside the distance. So
Yeah, I think if Caceres could mind his P's and Q's and not get finished, like he should be able to outpoint him and could even get a finish by himself. But yeah, I mean Pineda just shocked people like coming back. That's kind of how we were thinking when he came back against Tucker Lutz. It's like he's pretty old coming in after pop substances. Like, what does he really have to fight for? And then goes out there, gets the submission win. So he's always live. He's always a live dog. Maybe not enough of a dog to like take a bite at him at this, plus 160. It's not a huge dog, but yeah.
Yeah. I could see people being too high on him too after that Tucker Lutz performance. Like, I don't know. It's just it's a weird situation with Pineda.
Yeah. I wasn't too high on Tucker Lutz either. So take that with a grain of salt. A lightweight bout here, Jared Gordon coming back after the headbutt from King. Now, not Bobby Green, King. Minus 175 for Gordon, plus 175 for Jim Miller coming back after the nasty eye poke. So both guys coming back after some nasty outings last time. Over under 2.5 rounds, minus 115 for the over, plus 115 for the under. It's a good fight here, I got to say. Both guys are gritty. Both guys are durable, and both guys are always down to throw. So Jared Gordon, like you said earlier, I mean, it seems like he's getting better. And the Paddy Pimblett fight, obviously, everyone thinks he wins, or everyone thinks he won, including myself. And then in the first round against Bobby Green, he was looking pretty good. But Bobby Green's somewhat of a slow starter, I would say that. He was outstriking him, but he looked solid. Like, there's not many people that can keep up with the volume of Bobby Green. And Jared Gordon looked like he was doing it. Ultimately ended with the headbutt, which was unfortunate. And then Jim Miller had a tough one in his last time out. I mean, he got the brakes kind of beat off of him. I wouldn't say like it was a terrible performance. Like he showed it at his age, I would say. Like, still very durable, but looked a little bit slow. And against Alexander Hernandez, who paced himself more that fight, it looked like he took a lot of damage in that one. I'm surprised he's coming back this soon, especially after what happened to his eye. So that's a little concerning, I gotta say. This one's it's a greasy one, considering all the circumstances that I just gave out. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it is. I mean, Jim Miller, love the dude as a fighter. Him being older now is like, there's going to be a point where he slows down, or he can't take the big shots anymore. The cardio fails him, being as old as he is and that many miles on his career. And Jared Gordon, I mean, obviously should have beat Paddy Pimblett. No contest to Bobby Green. That submission loss to Grant Dawson. So, I mean, it kind of tells you he can be subbed on the ground, and Jim Miller's obviously dangerous as all can be when the fights get there. But other than that, like, Jared Gordon hasn't looked phenomenal, but he hasn't looked bad necessarily either since the Charles Oliveira knockout, which was, going on 4 years ago now. So I don't know, man. It's hard to get a read on this. It's like, is Jim Miller going to come in there and still hold up after everything? I mean, he just had a war with Alexander Hernandez where he took a lot of big shots in that fight. And I mean, that was just in February. It's not like that was 6 months, a year ago. It wasn't that long ago. But at the same time, after getting beat up like that for a couple rounds and taking those big shots, he nearly finished Hernandez when the time was running out, had his back, had him in a dangerous situation, didn't quite have the angle on the rear naked choke, but was close to it. And Hernandez is an athletic, younger guy, powerful, fast, everything. And Jim Miller hung around with him. So, yeah, man, I want to take a bite at Jim Miller so bad. I do, but I don't know if I can here. Jared Gordon, just being able to compete with Paddy, should have beat Paddy. And I'm not saying Paddy's a world beater, but he is an up and coming stud. All the hype around him, everybody showed up to watch him fight in their fight. And Jared Gordon rise to the occasion and, arguably won. Bobby Green, that thing ended, unfortunately, in the first round. I think that fight was just getting started. But he was able to touch Bobby Green up in that fight, which isn't, it's not as hard to do now that Bobby's a little older and the head movement's not as fast. But a lot of people have struggled to hit Bobby Green. He was able to. He landed some good shots. So, yeah, man, it almost feels like a pick'em fight in this one. But plus 175, Jim Miller, like, if you're betting, like, that's pretty tempting, in my opinion, for a guy who's dangerous. You're fighting a guy in Jared Gordon who's been subbed before in the last couple of years. So, yeah, it makes it really interesting. For the pick, I think Jared Gordon gets it done. I think we could see somewhat of a war here, a pretty good back and forth between the grappling and the striking. Yeah, I'm going to pick Jared Gordon, but probably not going to bet minus 175 on him.
Yeah, I just super concerned about the turnaround from the headbutt. That was, it'll be like just a little over a month. That was April 22nd, and this fight's going to be June 3rd. So, I mean, that's what, 6 weeks? And after that, he was saying that, he was giving out all the injuries that he had going into that fight, and then he comes out with it with, the headbutt and has like a concussion. How much has he really been able to train with that? He's stepping in here for Ludovic Klein, I believe, because that's who Jim Miller was supposed to be fighting. So he's not really taking it with a full camp. I don't know. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff going against him in this spot. I'm surprised he's even taking it, to be honest. But if it was like, if you take everything out of it, I think Jared Gordon wins this. But all that stuff that he's just throwing on him, I don't really like him, at chalk. So I'll take it for the pick, but very concerned about everything that's going on there. A flyweight fight here. Tim Elliott coming in at minus 175. Victor Altamirano plus 175. Over under 2.5 rounds. Minus 240 for the over. Plus 240 for the under. Tim Elliott coming in here. This is going to be his redemption fight. We all know what he's been dealing with outside of the octagon with his marriage. So he's probably going to have a heavy heart coming into this one. And he's going to be, is it his first fight without his coach as well?
I believe so, because his last fight was,
his last fight was last March. So it's going to be a little, 16 months since his last fight. So what kind of version are we going to get here with Tim Elliott? I mean, he's had 2 scheduled fights. back in June of 2022, and then he had one scheduled against Alan Nascimento for this card, and then Altamirano had to step in. So, what kind of version are we going to get with Tim Elliott? You're going to get an awkward fighter. That's who he is, and I think in this spot, he's super seasoned within the sport. He's going to have a lot of experience coming in here against Victor Altamirano, who I think is a solid flyweight. He doesn't do anything like insanely well. He's just kind of all around. Has a lot of action. He can mix in the takedowns. He can put a lot of volume on you on the feet. I don't think he's going to be able to do that to Tim Elliott if unless he's taken a big step down from where he was at, because he's been around the top of the division, or at least fighting ranked guys for like a long time. So I got to side with Tim Elliott here, even with everything that's going on in his life. And I think maybe that could play a better factor for him, because we just saw Mackenzie Dern fight pretty damn hard with everything that's going on with her. So I'll take Tim Elliott. I kind of like the price. I mean, minus 175 is not crazy. Victor Altamirano, he's in close fights. He's always in close fights, and it's not against, the top of the cream of the crop. Like, he lost a split decision to Carlos Hernandez, and his last time out against Vinicius Salvador, it was a unanimous decision, but it was a 29-28, and then his Contender Series was a split decision win. So, yeah, I think Tim Elliott gets it done. What do you think?
Yeah, I came out publicly and I said that this fight for Tim Elliott could be, that extra fire he needs. He could go in and just look like, the next level Tim Elliott that, a mythical fighter, as you could say. Or this could be detrimental to him. He could come in there and he could be distracted, not train the way he was supposed to, because, he lost the whole thing with his wife and stuff is terrible. But he's also, got basically forced to leave the gym he was at, forced to leave the coach, his head coach he's had, and James Krause. I mean, that's a lot to deal with in the MMA world in one, basically 6-7 months. So you could see a Tim Elliott with a burning fire in him coming out there to put Altamirano out, or you could see a Tim Elliott who looks lost in there. And I came out and said that. And I think Tim Elliott's aware that that could happen. It could go either way, because he commented on the video and just said, yep. So I think he's aware, and I'm glad he's aware, because he knows, if things start going wrong, maybe he needs to focus, switch it up, do something. But you watch these two guys side by side fight. I mean, they're kind of similar. I mean, both guys aren't crazy powerful. Both guys are a little bit awkward in there, and they'll shoot some takedowns. They'll grapple. The one thing I saw in Altamirano's last fight against Vinicius Salvador is that he did start slowing down as the fight went on. I mean, he tried to keep the pace up, but the shots were just so slow eventually. He shot so many takedowns eventually that some got stuffed. He landed some, but his legs looked really heavy in the late second round and through the third. Ended up getting the win. Super close fight against the guy making his debut. But now you're fighting Tim Elliott, who's been in there a million times, fought a bunch of people in the UFC, a bunch of high-level guys. So it gets interesting, man. And Tim Elliott, his last loss to Mateusz Nicolau. In that fight, I mean, the stats, he landed more strikes than Nicolau. Both guys had a takedown. Both guys looked good in that fight. They gave it to Nicolau. I thought that was the right decision, but overall it was a close fight. I guess you could say Nicolau just got knocked out a few weeks ago, or a month or two ago, but still, we all know Nicolau's he's a pretty solid fighter for this division. So all that being said, man, I think Tim Elliott, all the signs point to him here. You're fighting a guy who doesn't have that much UFC experience. You've fought all the high-level guys, similar style. Who's going to implement the game plan more? It should be Tim Elliott, but you just never know when guys are dealing with those kind of things, what mindset they're in, any kind of mental block, distractions, that kind of thing. But I'm going to push my chips towards the Tim Elliott side, though. I think he comes in there aggressive, ready to go, and he really needs this win for his career, for his life, for everything. So you'd be amazed what guys can do when their backs are against the cage like that.
Could we get a Tim Elliott finish? It's been 5.5 years since he's gotten a finish. So
I think Altamirano is pretty durable. I don't know if he gets the finish.
Yeah, these guys are awkward, and they can get out of a lot of stuff. So I mean, it's probably going to take a knee to the chin like Nicolau took to put out Altamirano. But
neither guy really hit that hard either. I mean, they're more like volume kind of touch you up, grapple, so.
Yeah, I like Elliott. We'll see how he comes out. I think he'll come out pretty hard.
I do too.
Another flyweight fight here. Karine Silva and Ketlin Souza, plus 200 for Souza, minus 200 for Silva, over under 2.5 rounds, minus 115 for the over, plus 115 for the under. Both ladies 5-0 in their last 5. Both ladies from Brazil. Both ladies under 30 years old. Karine Silva was supposed to fight the Zombie Girl back in April 22nd, and Zombie Girl missed weight, so she couldn't get that fight in. She's gonna get a newcomer here in Souza, who is just coming off a win back in January in Invicta FC, which was for the title, the vacant flyweight championship for Invicta, where she was a pick'em against Christina Williams, who is actually a pretty, I don't want to say like good fighter, but she's decent. Like she looked decent in the fight, I'll say. When I watched it, I thought it was a pretty close fight. It could have went either way. Ultimately, she got a unanimous decision win. So I wasn't like super impressed with that fight. But it's women's MMA, man. And we say this every week, but Karine Silva has looked pretty solid over her last few fights. Like she's looked like a finisher, which leads me to believe she just got more skill that she can get it done. She's finishing girls in the UFC on the Contender Series, and Ketlin Souza is going to decisions with 6 and 4 fighters in Invicta, 5 rounds too. I just like the upside on Silva. Yeah, she's a minus 200 favorite, so I'm not saying anything crazy there, but I think she probably gets this one done. And she can do it on the feet, she can do it on the ground, and she can win by decision. So I think she can get this win. And at minus 200, maybe a parlay piece. But it's a newcomer, and I know you like to fade the newcomers, so you're probably on my side. But what do you think?
Yeah, I am on your side. Ketlin Souza on the feet always has a chance. I mean, she's powerful for women's MMA. 8 KOs in her career, 1 sub, but 4 decisions. And lately, it's been all decisions with her. She's not really knocking these girls out as the competition gets better and better. It's kind of a big flag to me there that she's not going to go in there and finish or spark Karine Silva. And Silva, on the other hand, has 15 wins, every single one by finish. 8 knockouts, 7 submissions. I mean, the girl comes in there with ill intent. She's going to look to take your head off. She's going to take you down. She's going to submit you. And getting a girl like that in your UFC debut is kind of a tough go of it. I mean, Karine Silva's proved that even at the UFC level, man, she's going to finish you. Her last fight, first round, Darce choke over Poliana Botello. I think there's going to be another level here between these girls, and especially in women's MMA. Sometimes you get that big gap where you can just tell watching the fight that one girl's miles better than the other. Not necessarily saying that's going to happen here. On the feet, I think it might look somewhat close in the first few minutes or first round, but as the fight goes on, I think this is all Karine Silva, especially if it hits the mat. I think she's just going to be too much. So I'm going to take Karine Silva, and I think she gets it done inside the distance. I really do. I mean, Ketlin Souza has been knocked out twice. She's been submitted once. So she's able to get finished, whereas Karine Silva has won every single one of her wins by finish. So I like Karine Silva here.
I like her as well. Definitely going to keep an eye on that play. A lightweight fight here. Jamie Mullarkey coming in at plus 298 against Guram Kutateladze at minus 298. Over under 2.5 rounds, plus 145 for the over, minus 145 for the under. Guram, everyone wants to see him back. The Georgian fighter, 5-0. His last 5. Guram Kutateladze is coming off a loss to Damir Ismagulov, which was a split decision. That was UFC Austin last year. And he was a very popular underdog in that fight. And ultimately, I think a lot of people think he won that fight too. But the guy is just yoked to the gills, man. I mean, he beat Mateusz Gamrot by a split decision, who, is fighting at the top of the lightweight division. So, I mean, he's beaten the guy at the top of the lightweight division. We all know he's got a very high ceiling. He's coming in here as a pretty pretty high favorite against Jamie Mullarkey, who's got a lot more UFC experience than Guram does. But in all reality, I think Guram probably gets it done. But Jamie Mullarkey is not like some easy fight by any means. I mean, he had a great performance in his last time out against Francisco Prado, where we all thought the under was going to happen, or we thought Jamie Mullarkey was going to fight a little bit more wild, and he just kind of went out there and with a really good game plan and pieced him up for 3 rounds, and Prado just couldn't really get anything going. He was 11-0 going into that fight with a bunch of finishes and just never really found anything. So Jamie Mullarkey could come out there with a similar game plan and just, stay safe, use the length, chip away at him with the leg kicks, and find a win that way. I mean, that's definitely not out of the question. But Guram, pretty heavy favorite here. I'm going to go with him. I think he can mix it up. And if he can get the fight in spots where he wants it to, take control of the fight. Don't let Jamie Mullarkey dictate the pace. He can get it done. What do you think?
Yeah, I wish Guram was more active, man. I mean, he fought Gamrot in his UFC debut, which is a hell of a debut. Especially to beat Mateusz Gamrot in your debut. That's impressive. And then he lost. It's 2 years later, he loses to Mir Ismagulov, who's, 23-1. That's nothing to really hang your head about, but it was such a close fight that you could have given it to Guram there. But I wish he was more active, man. It's almost a year later that he's fighting again. 2-year layoff and then a year layoff. I don't know. I just wish he had more activity. Jamie Mullarkey, he kind of showed the ability in his last fight to just use a game plan and stick to it. Everybody wanted to see those two stand and trade because Prado, was big and hyped up for these knockouts, and Jamie Mullarkey just kind of took that away from him, took him down, did what he wanted, and won the fight safely over 3 rounds. But Guram, man, when he's in there, especially that first round, 2 rounds, the dude's aggressive. He's just that crazy Georgian. He is Georgian, yeah. Georgian fighter. Similar to guys like I can never say. I'm just gonna say Chikadze. I can never get that first name to roll off my tongue. But striking similar. He's got good kicks. He's powerful. Wrestling wise, he got taken down quite a few times in his fight against Gamrot. I believe it was 5 or 6. But he worked back up to his feet, hurt Gamrot on the feet when he could. Just showed a pretty well-rounded game. So against Mullarkey, I don't see Mullarkey having big success with the wrestling and grappling. And on the feet, it might be kind of close in the first round, but as the fight goes on, I see Guram start to take over. I do think he wins, but at this price, man, it's just risky.
Yeah,
I'm surprised that the line's this wide. I know Guram's got a lot of hype, and people think he's going to be a really good fighter, but he only does have 2 fights in the UFC. Like I said, I wish there was more activity there. I know he's got canceled fights and all of that, but I just wish he'd get on this more active streak and show us more of what he's got overall. It'd be a lot easier to get a read on him. But I do think he should be the favorite. Maybe not quite this big of a favorite, but I do think he wins.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Like Jamie, there's a lot to chew on there for Jamie Mullarkey at plus near 300. Lengthy guy, younger guy, improving. Guram hasn't been active. Guram, I believe he trains in Sweden as well with Hamzat and goes to Vegas from time to time as well. He's big friends with Hamzat, so it's never a bad thing. But yeah, I don't really know why he hasn't been as active. Is it just injuries or just doesn't really care to or just can't get a fight or what is it?
Yeah.
Because it seems like the prime is fading. You know what I mean?
Right.
Comes into the UFC in 2020 and he's only got 2 fights. So it's damn near 3.5 years. We'll see. But Mullarkey, live dog for sure. At this price, at least. Welterweight bout Abubakar Nurmagomedov coming in at plus 110 against Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. Minus 110 for dos Santos. Over under 2.5 rounds, minus 188. For the over, plus 188 for the under. Abubakar Nurmagomedov. Everyone wants to bet the Nurmagomedov when they see the name. But I gotta say, Elizeu Zaleski is a dog, man. The beating he put on Benoit Saint-Denis was quite the fight, man. He put an absolute beating on him. But if you want to have a little thing to look forward to with Abubakar. Zaleski lost to a Russian before that, Muslim Salikov, by split decision. Um, I don't. I mean, I don't know if I could really get behind Abubakar at this spot. I mean, I think at plus money, if you're getting Nurmagomedov at plus money, not a terrible bet. But he's not, the brand name of the Nurmagomedovs. I mean, he's lost. There's just a couple fights that, like, his losses just look bad. His losses look really bad. David Zabata, triangle choke in the UFC. And then he got rear naked choke by Pavel Kush in PFL. And then lost to Magomed Mustafayev. That's not a bad loss. That was back in 2014. So I don't know. I mean, I was against him, against Omar Gadzhiev back in October, kicking myself after that. I'm like, why would you take an Omar Gadzhiev over Nurmagomedov? Like, what are you doing, Hayden? But in this spot, Eliezer Zaleski, I think, has a little bit better stand-up. Could probably stifle the wrestling. But he is a little bit older too. I mean, he's it's just a greasy one. I don't. Maybe you got a better side than this one. I just think it's kind of a toss-up. It's probably fairly priced. I just lean Zaleski. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm just not high on Abubakar. I'm really not. I don't know. I think he's the lesser of the Nurmagomedovs or Magomedovs from Dagestan. And Dos Santos, man, he's got good kickboxing. He's a powerful dude. He can be flashy, with the spins and knees and, spinning crazy kicks. I mean, knocking Sean Strickland out like that, it's crazy. But he's also got good wrestling, and I believe he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well. The layoff does concern me a little bit. Abubakar's at least got phenomenal training partners and coaching, and he's going to be tough. I just don't, like I said, man, his best win is Jared Gooden, who we just saw not too long ago. And Jared Gooden's not really, especially at this stage, man, he's just not really that good of a fighter. And it took him 3 rounds to finally go to the judges' scorecard, and he gets the unanimous decision. But I don't think he's really going to have a big advantage anywhere this fight goes. Of course, he could catch Dos Santos. I don't think he's going to be able to go in there and wrestle him and get a decision that way. I think Dos Santos is good enough with the wrestling defense. And on the ground, I just feel like he's going to be better too, as far as like the jiu-jitsu goes. And on the feet, I just think Dos Santos can crack him. I think he can get him out of there. If this thing stays standing, I look for Dos Santos to have a bigger advantage here and be the better fighter. I can't believe I'm going to say it, but I'm going to fade the Nurmagomedov here. I'm going to take Dos Santos for my pick.
I think it's like so obvious it should be Dos Santos, but like just seeing the Nurmagomedov name, you don't want to go against it. It's like,
yep,
it's probably gonna be something you're gonna have to get over. You're just gonna have to deal with it. Like,
and I've got so many comments, people saying like, "How could you bet?" I forget which fight it was, but how could you bet against a Dagestani fighter, and how could you bet against the Nurmagomedov? So I hope he loses here, and I'm gonna be in the comments on this one.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems like a no-brainer that you take a Nurmagomedov, but in this spot, I just don't know. I mean, you said like he's gonna have a better shot on the feet, I think, and I don't see him being able to hold down Zaleski for at least 2 rounds, because even against Omar Gadzhiev, like, he's still 29-28 on 2 of the judges' scorecards, so it's a close fight there. And Zaleski's been around for a long time, dude, very seasoned in the UFC.
And I mean, for Dos Santos, you look at, if he doesn't get the split decision loss to Muslim Salikov, he's riding, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I mean, he's 10-1 if he that split decision goes his way in his last 11 fights, with his only loss being a knockout to Li Jingliang, who I think Li Jingliang's a better fighter than Abubakar Nurmagomedov, if I'm being honest. So, I mean, Dos Santos obviously knows how to win. He's got a bajillion of them on his UFC record. He does it in all different ways, KO, sub, decision, you name it. So I just think he's overall maybe more well-rounded, should be the better striker, better chance to win here, in my opinion. Probably going to bet on him too.
Let's go. Bantamweight fight here, John Castaneda and Muin Gafurov. No lines are out yet because Muin Gafurov just stepped in for Mateus Mendonça, but he's coming in here 3-2 in his last 5, 18-4 record. Castaneda 3-2 in his last 5 as well, 19-6. And Gafurov, if you remember correctly, when Gafurov, he's 27 years old, so fairly young, but he had the Contender Series fight against Chad and Hellinger, who was not supposed to win that fight. I think Gafurov was kind of given a layup there against with Chad and Hellinger. And then Hellinger beat him by split decision. I mean, Gafurov was a minus 450 favorite. And Hellinger's he was like 34, 35, somewhere around there. Like, if you're getting a Contender Series fight at 34, 35, you're probably going in there to lose. Like, just straight up. And Hellinger got the win and got the contract. But Gafurov, I think, blew a shot there. But he's getting a shot here just straight into the UFC. But before that, he had a couple fights in one. He went 3-3 in ONE FC, lost to John Lineker, which was his last loss before the Hellinger. And that's not a bad loss by any means. He was actually scheduled to fight Movlid Kabulaev as well, who we talked about earlier, and he was also scheduled to fight Bozar Evloev in the UFC back in April of 2019. So this guy has been scheduled to fight some pretty solid competition, and he's coming in here against John Castaneda. There's no line out yet. What do you think the line's going to be? I got a feeling Gafurov's going to be the favorite against Castaneda, even short notice. Castaneda was, I think, like minus 175 against Mendonça. And I just don't see him being a favorite. Maybe it's close to a pick 'em. But if I had to guess, I think it'd probably be Gafurov, like minus 150. Just because he's from Tajikistan. He's fought some solid competition. And that's just what I see. What do you think?
Yeah, I could see it being maybe a pick 'em. I mean, both guys are good and pretty well rounded. I mean, if you look at Castaneda, triangle choke against Marcelo Rojo, loses to Nathaniel Wood in somewhat, decently competitive fight. Nathaniel Wood, I think, is a pretty damn good fighter. Knocks out Eddie Wineland, who feels like he's like 50 years old at this point. Submits Miles Johns and loses to Daniel Santos. The Daniel Santos fight, though, it's almost like Castaneda just didn't look like himself, or maybe Daniel Santos, kind of a prelude to the fight we're going to talk about in a bit. Maybe Daniel Santos is just that guy. But Castaneda has looked good against some of these lower mid-level guys. So it just depends. Like, I don't know what Gafurov's going to look like exactly, because, like you said, he's fought decent competition, but nobody quite at this, I guess, UFC level. The one thing for Gafurov, though, that impressed me is that he's never been finished. The dude's got like 10 knockouts and some submission, maybe one submission or so. But and he's lost 4 times by decision. So it's like he's almost a dude that you got to go out there and expect to be in a 3-round war with him, and you got to be prepared for that, because that's probably where it's going to head if he doesn't finish you. I mean, he's a Dana White's Contender Series alum. As far as his skill set, he is a good all-around fighter. I mean, you watch his tape, the guy can strike. I mean, he's actually a pretty damn good striker. Holds some power, obviously, with those knockouts. But he's a good grappler, too. He does tend to slow down as fights go on. On the Contender Series fight, it just seemed like as that fight got towards the end, he started to lose a little bit of gas. And on Castaneda's side, he's got a wrestling background. He's a southpaw. He can try to be flashy at times, but here against Gafurov, I think if he can get this fight to the ground, maybe you try to use some control, I think that's his best bet, because if he stays standing, I could see him getting clipped here. Normally he uses that wrestling to keep it standing, but he does have it in his back pocket. Overall, man, after watching the Daniel Santos fight, put a dangerous striker like Gafurov in there, and I'm tempted to see what that knockout prop's going to be, because I could see it happening again here. Just from what I've seen from Gafurov, I like what I see on the tape. I'm kind of on your side. I think he might open up as the favorite here now.
Yeah, the more I look at it, I think he's going to be the favorite, even with the short notice. But Castaneda, how about the guy taking on Daniel Santos and losing? That's a shoot-to-box guy. And then signs to fight Mendonça, who's another shoot-to-box guy, but Mendonça pulls out. I was actually leaning Mendonça going into that. And now that he's out and Gafurov's in, Gafurov I think will be the favorite, and that's the side that I'll take for this one.
Here's the one thing that concerns me though for Gafurov is that Castaneda is notoriously, gone into fights and just put this pace and pressure on dudes and just kind of, tried to break guys down, and it being short notice like this. And if Gafurov's not, I guess prepared for that, being short notice and everything, I could see him maybe having a problem with the pace and maybe start slowing down and gassing out at some point. And I think if you're Castaneda, you're kind of hoping for that. I think he just comes out off the jump, pressures him, get him up against the cage, and then he's got a decent shot. But if he gets clipped, man, could get interesting.
Yeah, I think so too. Heavyweight fight here. Andre Arlovski, the Pitbull, coming in at plus 115 against Don'Tale Mayes, who's minus 115. Over under 2.5 rounds. Minus 150 for the over, plus 150 for the under. 44 years old for Arlovski. This is going to be his, 56th pro fight. 4-1 in his last 5. Record for Don'Tale Mayes, 9-5, 2-3 in his last 5. Still coming in as the favorite, though. Who do you like in this one?
Man, I wanted to look at Don'Tale Mayes here, but you look at Arlovski, and he's 4-1 in his last 5 fights at 44 years old. And you look at the guys he's beating: Chase Sherman, Carlos Felipe, Jared Vandera, and Jake Collier. And it loses to Marcus Rogerio de Lima, who's a pretty good fighter. But I mean, Don'Tale Mayes kind of fits the description of these other dudes that Andre Arlovski's beating. I mean, so it's like, how do you get off that train? Don'Tale Mayes, I mean, you go in there and you lose to Augusto Sakai. I mean, come on, man. I don't that scares me right there. Sakai, I don't know what Sakai, wasn't he like on a 3 or 4 fight knockout loss streak?
Yeah, 4 fight.
Yeah, I mean, shit, man. Had the fight with Hamdi, who it got overturned because of the steroid use. And then, the fight against Josh Parisian won via elbows. I don't know why I thought that was decision for some reason. But, I mean, Josh Parisian, like, really? I mean, Don'Tale Mayes hasn't shown me anything that leads me to believe he's going to beat Andre Arlovski. Even though, I mean, Arlovski, 44 years old, Don'Tale, you should go and beat this guy. I mean, the dude is older than most guys, maybe everybody in the UFC at this point. But man, Andre Arlovski has so much experience. He's a good counterpuncher. He's got good striking. And Don'Tale Mayes, you look at him, and it's almost frustrating watching him because how big he is and how long he is. You'd think he'd just have this crazy Francis Ngannou power, and it's like non-existent at times. It's like this dude couldn't knock me out. So yeah, man, I don't know. It's dicey because could be one of those heavyweight fights that's just terrible. It seems like every lower level, mid-level heavyweight fight has just been terrible. But I'm going to lean on Andre Arlovski. Give me the experience. Give me the counterpunching. Don'Tale Mayes, I'm going to fade him, man. It's more of a fade on Don'Tale Mayes than anything here.
Yeah, there's not a chance in hell I'm touching Don'Tale Mayes at chalk. There's not a chance in hell I'm doing that. I'm taking Andre Arlovski at plus 115. I mean, the guy has been around forever. He's got the experience. This fight's going to be at the Apex, and I don't know if you remember, but when he fought Jake Collier, there's no way that Andre Arlovski won that fight. And Jake Collier, the whole Apex was chanting for Arlovski, and I think that's what swung it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think the Apex chanting for Arlovski swung the fight for him to get the win against Jake Collier. It's going to be at the Apex in this one. I don't expect them to be chanting for Don'Tale Mayes over Andre Arlovski. So I think it probably goes to decision. I think if you want to beat Arlovski at this point, you have to overpower him. Like you can't just stand and trade with him. He's too seasoned. He's 44 years old. Like they're heavyweights. They don't really rely on the speed anymore. Like once you get up that high, it's more power, precision. Arlovski is going to be able to stand with guys that aren't going to overpower him. That's not Don'Tale Mayes. And Don'Tale Mayes isn't going to really – I don't think he's going to be able to take down Andre Arlovski, nor is he really going to try to do that. So I think at plus money, it's Andre Arlovski all day. Like that's the only play in this one I could ever think of. So give me Arlovski, the Pitbull. I'll probably play it too. I love to fade Don'Tale. I'm so pissed I didn't pulled the trigger on Sakai last time.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no way. Like Sakai has been fighting such better competition, and they're like, it was like a pickle. I'm like, there's something weird about this, but it turned out that Sakai like just destroyed him too, and then got cut. Right? He won and then got cut, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I could see Dontel Mays coming in and trying to implement, that pressure fighting and just Arlovski clipping him or something, because I just don't. Dontel Mays is slower. He's just not a guy you look to go out there and be a better striker than a guy like Arlovski. But it's just, you just never know with these heavyweights at this level, man. It could be an ugly, nasty, boring fight too. So give me Arlovski though.
Dontel doesn't use his length well at all. I mean, he's 6'6", doesn't use it as well, and there is a lot of like uncertainty with heavyweights. But with Arlovski having so much experience, I think you know what you can get from him, which is why I'm like comfortable taking him here. So I'll take him. Daniel Santos, the guy we mentioned earlier, coming in at -175 against Johnny Munoz, +175 for Munoz. This is a rebooking, over under 2.5 rounds, +155 for the over, -155 for the under. Was looking forward to this one, and then it got canceled. I think was it Santos that had to pull out?
Yeah,
because of weight cut issues.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is like a great turnaround. I mean, it's been like a month, so I don't know if it's it said injury. It doesn't say weight cut issues. So what's the injury, man? Like, what's the injury that you're dealing with? But he's still taking it. I don't know why. It had to have healed up. That's just what I'm gonna go with. And I was on Santos to begin with. And I think he just a little bit more dynamic on the feet. But with the injury, not very confident. I was very confident in it earlier. But with the injury and then making the comeback a month later, not as confident, I got to say. But if he does win, he probably wins inside the distance. So that's probably the only way that I would play it. But Johnny Munoz hasn't really showed much in the UFC to get behind. Like, his wins are Ludwig Shalinian and Jamie Simmons. Not the greatest, not the cream of the crop. His losses to Tony Gravely and Nate Maness, not the cream of the crop either. So he's kind of like a middling bantamweight. So I think Daniel Santos should win. The upside is much, much higher. But the question marks are concerning to me. What do you think?
Yeah, man, I really, really, really liked Daniel Santos when they were first supposed to fight a month ago. I was all over him. It was like -165, -1, basically the same odds it is now. And I thought that was good enough to play for him. Here, like the things you mentioned, it makes you a little bit, weary of taking him just because of what happened a month ago. And yeah, they listed injury, but I want to say that I read something to where they called it an injury, but it was actually, weight cut issues or sickness or something like that. He wasn't actually injured by any means. So yeah, if it is just weight cutting issues, I mean, there's still kind of a concern. But I mean, you got a month to figure it out. So hopefully he's all good and ready to go, because I think he's the better fighter here for sure. I think he's more well-rounded. You watch Johnny Munoz, and even, before the UFC, you can tell like his striking has progressed, but it's also told me that this dude is a grappler and a submission artist who's picked up striking along the way and kind of gotten better and is continuing to improve. Whereas Daniel Santos, man, looks like a freak with the striking at times. He has power. He reminds me exactly of Charles Oliveira. I think you made the video of him, basically looking identical to him in there. And that's exactly his style too. I mean, he can crack, gets on the ground. He's got good jiu-jitsu, good defense too, as far as, wrestling and keeping fights standing or keeping fights where he wants them to be. He's pretty good in that department. And Johnny Munoz has a higher takedown average, but not a very high takedown accuracy. And that's against lower level guys who aren't as good as Daniel Santos. So if this thing stays on the feet, I just think Johnny Munoz, he might compete in the first round, but eventually I just think he gets picked apart here by Daniel Santos. And like we've seen, man, Santos knocked out Castaneda. He's nasty on the feet. He's just I don't know, man. He's just a nasty fighter all the way around. He looks in there. He's aggressive. He looks to get you out of there. I think he's going to do the same against Johnny Munoz. I really do. Unless there is complications with an injury or the weight cut or something, and Daniel Santos gasses out or just doesn't look good after the first round or two. But overall, man, I could see this one ending inside the distance. I think it does. But I'm rocking with Daniel Santos for sure here.
Yeah, I think he's just a little bit more dynamic.
Yeah, for sure.
Finish it on the feet, finish it on the ground too. So I'll take him. Strawweight bout here, Elise Reed and Jinyu Frey, plus 120 for Frey, minus 120 for Reed. Over under 2.5 rounds, minus 285 for the over, plus 285 for the under. Both ladies 2-3 in their last 5. Elise Reed 6-3 in total. She's had a bit of an up and down. I mean, she hasn't really been too respected as far as the lines go. She's come through against Corey McKenna as a plus 230 dog, and then came through against Melissa Martinez as a plus 145 dog. And the only time she was a favorite was against Sam Hughes, and she lost that one. So she's coming in here as a slight favorite. It's Jinyu Frey, who got put out against Polyana Viana in her last fight, which was very shocking because Polyana is a big submission threat, but she came out and got the knockout win. And then she's coming in this one on 2-fight losing streak, which she could have won the split decision against Vanessa Demopoulos. It's a close fight. This is greasy, man. This is the definition of greasy, and it's close to a pick 'em. Honestly, I'd probably just say dog or pass. Like on the feet, Elise Reed is solid. Like she has some pretty good kicks. She's got some decent hands. She I don't want to say she can't grapple, but like that's just where she's been exposed. And like it's damn near blatant. Like she wants to keep the fight on the feet. If you're Jinyu Frey, like why would you even mess around? Like just go try to take her down. Like Sam Hughes took her down and just destroyed her on the ground. Sijara Eubanks destroyed her on the ground. That was at flyweight though. And then Loma Luke Bume even got her in a rear naked choke, which was her first ever submission and her last time out. So the blueprint is there for Elise Reed. But if you're just going to stand and strike with her, it's going to be, a close fight. It's probably going to go to decision, and it could go either way. That's how she's won her fights. So if you're Jinyu Frey, just take her to the ground, man. Just use the strength. I mean, she's got fucking pipes. She's 38 years old. She's got pipes for arms.
Yeah.
She's bricked up 11-8 record, which is like doesn't tell me much. Like doesn't tell me you're super high level skill wise. It tells me you're probably like a grinder, and you got to get these wins by just out muscling these chicks. I think she could do that in this spot, but is she going to do that? We'll see. But that's her path to victory. If she takes it, I think it's there. If she doesn't take it and decides to strike with her, and it's going to be a decision, split decision, probably one way or the other. But I'm going to go dog or pass. I'll take Jinyu Frey. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you bet this fight split decision. Like you just said, I think it's a perfect candidate for a fight that's going to be split. And I might be tripping. What was Elise Reed? Did she have Loma Luke Boonme in some trouble in that first round?
Yeah,
months ago.
Tracked her.
Couldn't remember if she almost subbed her. If she knocked her. I don't know if she got credited a knockdown, but she looked good in that first round against Loma at times.
Yeah,
and Loma's a pretty solid fighter. I mean, I thought Elise Reed had shown improvements, at least in that first round. And of course she gets submitted in the second, but, yeah, man, Jinyu Frey, 38 years old. Like you said, if she gets the fight to the ground, Elise Reed has shown that she's vulnerable there. I mean, that's how she loses fights, either by TKO or submission. But Jinyu Frey, I mean, losing to Kay Hansen, she lost to Loma as well, but went all 3 rounds with her, was able to survive, that onslaught. I mean, after Loma landed 80 strikes and Jinyu Frey landed 26, she just got pieced up. But then she lost to Vanessa Demopoulos, who didn't look that good last weekend. And then Polyana Viana obviously knocked her out really, really fast in that first round. So, man, Jinyu Frey, that's just her last 2 fights. It doesn't give you a whole lot to really be confident against a girl like Elise Reed. She didn't land a takedown in either one of her last 2 fights. She got taken down by Vanessa Demopoulos. Even when she won against Yoder, she didn't really look to take down Yoder many times, didn't land any, but her striking looked better in that one. But against Elise Reed, Elise has got to show that that takedown defense is getting a little bit better. I mean, it's under 50% right now. We've seen her taken down a couple of times, and it seems like each fight she's in, like 4 times against Hughes, 2 times against Loma, once by Melissa Martinez, 3 times by Corey McKenna. And, you know, to her credit, she's won some of those fights. She's found ways to win some of those fights. But if Jinyu Fry can get it there, I just think she's stronger. She's more powerful. She can kind of keep the fight where she wants. But on the feet, man, it's just so greasy in a dog fight. Not a dog fight, excuse me, a pick 'em that it's hard to kind of get a read on it. It's definitely not a dog fight. So, but yeah, man, I'm gonna lean with Elise Reed, but definitely staying away from this one.
Yeah, I wouldn't get too invested either way, because it's probably gonna be a split decision, and I'll side with the dog. Bantamweight bout here, Damon Blackshear coming in at plus 125 against Luan Lacerda, who's coming in at minus 125. Over under 2.5 rounds, minus 185 for the over, plus 185 for the under. Damon Blackshear coming in 3-1-1 in his last 5. Luan Lacerda lost his last fight out against Cody Stamann in his debut. That was in January. He lost that one by unanimous decision. And he looked pretty good, I got to say. I mean, Cody Stamann's not an easy debut by any means. I mean, he's been up at the top of the division for a while. And then it bounced or floated around the top 15 as of recently. So he's been fighting the top guys for most of his career. And Luan Lacerda, coming in at the debut, stood with him pretty well. Like, used his kicks very well against the shorter guy in Cody Stamann. But Damon Blackshear is a big 135er. I mean, 5'10", 72-inch reach, which is actually 1 inch shorter than Luan Lacerda, because Luan Lacerda is lengthy as well. But Damon Blackshear is strong, man. I mean, his last fight against Javid Basharat, who is Farid Basharat, my bad, who seems like he's going to be a real problem. He's one of the Basharat brothers, and it was Farid's debut, and Farid looked super good, but Blackshear looked super good as well, because Blackshear, he just looked really awkward on the feet, and he was facing a lot of problems, or forcing a lot of problems onto Farid Basharat, and in the grappling exchanges, he looked really strong. I think that's where he's going to thrive. That's where he's gotten a lot of his finishes were by submission, and he can do it in a bunch of different rounds as well. So in this one, I would expect him to go for the takedowns. If you're Luan Lacerda, though, he's got some good BJJ as well. I mean, the guy's got a ton of subs. He's got, 10 subs on his record?
Yeah.
So if it does go to the ground, somebody's probably getting finished. What do you think? Like, this one's priced near to a pick 'em. I would probably lean Blackshear just for the experience, because he's had a couple of tough fights. Like, Youssef Zalal was a draw, but I think he won the first 2 rounds, and then he got 10-8'd in the third, so that's why it was a draw. What do you think?
Yeah, at plus money, man, I kind of like Blackshear here. I feel like he was like a plus 400, plus 450 dog against Farid.
Yeah.
And he went in there and he made that fight pretty damn close. He even landed a takedown on Farid on the ground. He showed that, he's pretty damn good on the ground. And even on the feet, like Farid Basharat, those guys are known for, that kickboxing and being super slick on the ground and on the feet. But Damon was catching him a few times and hitting him pretty hard, kind of backing Farid up. Luan Lacerda against Cody Stamann landed a takedown of his own, which is impressive because Cody Stamann's a pretty damn good wrestler, and he's short and he's stocky and he's hard to take down. But on the feet, like you said, his kicks looked really, really good in that fight. But it could be a problem because that's like the only strike he throws is a kick. Like, he didn't throw the hands many times. He kind of fell in love with the leg and body kick and tried to bring it upstairs. And against Blackshear, who's so big, man, I could see him catching one and just dragging him down and just overpowering him. On the feet, too, you watch Luan, he stands super straight up and down with that, almost like Muay Thai style with his chin up, straight up. And, Blackshear was finding the chin of Farid. I have a feeling he could do it against Luan and he could catch him. So overall, I think Blackshear is more athletic here, stronger. on the ground, it could be a toss-up. Both these guys are slick. We might see some high-level grappling here. But from the striking department, if Blackshear can just stay away from the calf kicks and the body kicks, I think he's going to be able to find shots upstairs, and it might look better to the judges here. Plus money, plus 125. I'm going to take a chance on Damon Blackshear.
Yeah, I was super impressed with Blackshear's performance last time out, but I don't want that to like cloud my judgment as far as like, how high level I'm placing him, because Luan is super solid on the ground, and like that's where Blackshear thrives. And that's probably where he wants to get the fight. But he was putting Farid in some tough spots, which was like Farid's a good grappler too. Like he damn near had a triangle locked up at the buzzer in round 3. That was the round he won. And I'm like, 10 more seconds, that might have been it. He might have actually pulled off the buzzer beater. But yeah, I mean his losses, Farid, Danny Sabatello, Pat Sabatini, Chris Patino lost to Chris Patino, Keith Richardson. So I mean, 3 out of the 5 are some solid fighters. So a little bit more experience, I would say, for Blackshear. I think it's probably properly priced near a pick'em, but I'll lean Blackshear as well.
I could see this one ending inside the distance too, honestly.
Yeah.
I look at that, like you mentioned, like 10 more seconds, he could beat Farid there with that triangle. And if he has 20, 30 seconds, he might work that arm into some kind of arm bar or get some kind of finish there too. So both guys dangerous though. Should be fun to watch. Should be high level on the ground.
Yeah, I'm interested to see who comes out on top because, like I said, it's probably properly priced.
Yeah.
Light heavyweight bout here to kick us off for the afternoon. Felipe Lins coming in at plus 130 against Maxime Grishin, who's minus 130, over under 2.5 rounds, minus 130 for the over, plus 130 for the under. The 39-year-old Russian, 2-2-1 in his last 5 against the 37-year-old Felipe Lins, who is 3-2 in his last 5. And I think a bit of a resurgence for the guy because he's come back after some time off where he fought in 2020. He lost to Tanner Boser, had a bunch of canceled bouts with Dontel, Ben Rothwell, OSB, Azamat Mirzakhanov. Finally gets a fight against Marcin Prachnio in 2022. Gets a good decision win there, and then gets scheduled against Grishin, canceled. Scheduled against OSP, canceled. And then scheduled against OSP again. And he gets the first round knockout. So, I mean, he's looking pretty solid. I got to say, he looks like he's in great shape. He won that PFL $1 million. So maybe that money kind of went away. And he's like, shit, I got to get some stuff together and then win some fights here. But he showed a lot to believe in after not having a good run there. So his past 2 fights have looked pretty good. Maxime Grishin, his last win was William Knight in February of 2022. So he's been off for over a year. He's had some canceled bouts. The thing that scares me is they tried to feed him to Jelton Almeida twice. So I don't know what's going on there, why they're trying to get rid of Maxime Grishin. But I like the dog here. I got to say I like the dog. Felipe Lins, he's got a little bit of momentum. And I don't put too much stock in a William Knight win back in February of 2022. Which he missed weight by like 18 pounds, I think. William Knight did that fight. And I just think on the feet, he's a little bit more athletic. Felipe Lins is. Grishin's been around for a long time. I mean, he's got damn near over 40 fights. Not a ton in the UFC, 4 fights in the UFC, and he's 2-2. But I just think he's got a little bit more upside. Felipe Lins does coming in this one. A little bit more finishing ability, and he could mix in the wrestling. Smaller cage, it's going to favor him a little bit. So I'll take Felipe Lins as the underdog. And I actually, the more that I think about it, I like it even more. Like just going into this one, I just think he's got the momentum, and it's like a resurgence. He's still young enough where he could have a little bit of a run. Maxime Grishin kind of on the way out, hasn't been as active. So I'll take Felipe Lins. What do you think?
Yeah, at first I was like, man, Maxime Grishin's nearly 40 years old. Like, how much longer is he going to do this? And I look at Felipe Lins, and the dude's like 38, so he's up there too.
Yeah.
The one thing, though, I mean, Grishin against Dustin Jacoby, I believe he nearly finish him in the first round, I believe. Had him hurt, a couple of knockdowns in that fight. Ended up losing via unanimous decision, but striking with Jacoby, we all know Jacoby obviously took the loss, but he's a good striker. Beat William Knight, which is hard to like. I mean, it's just hard to gauge because look what William Knight did against Pragnea in his last fight. And it was kind of a similar story. Like William Knight only landed like 21 strikes in that fight against Grishin. So it's hard to get a read there. Loses to Marcin Tybura, which a fight where, nothing. It was just so boring. So against Felipe Lins, a guy who used to fought a heavyweight, comes to UFC, eventually drops down, and has looked pretty damn good at 205. Beats Pragnea, Oven St. Peru. I feel like both of us talked about that one. We saw that one coming. Felipe Lins is a dog there. Puts him out in the first round, just overwhelms him with pressure and pace, and landed some good shots. He can get takedowns too. I just feel like he's a more well-rounded fighter at this stage in both of these guys' career. I think Grishin, if he doesn't stand in there and get the pace going early with Lins, I think Lins could just kind of put it on him. And similar story to how he finished OSP. I think Lins is kind of on this momentous run, not so much run, but he's had some good fights in his last two. I think he could take that momentum and keep it going. And overall, he just feels like the lot younger fighter, in my opinion, for some reason. Even though the age is similar, he just seems like he's got more left in the tank. So, yeah, give me Felipe Lins for the first fight of the night, especially at plus money.
I like it. Those are the picks. Obviously, those are not our bets. If you want to get our bets, link is down in the description to get set up with the double leg premium. But that's 13 fights. Hopefully we can keep all of them. And I think there's some good spots on this card. So I'm looking forward to getting everything finalized, send it out to the members, and having another good weekend. We're just coming off a good weekend last weekend. UFC 73 or 72? 73?
73, yep.
73 with the Dern Hill card. You had a big card. What were some of the big hits for you?
I hit the first four straights of the night. We had under in the women's fight. What was the women's fight?
Silva and Leonardo.
Yeah, Silva and Leonardo. I'm gonna pull them up real quick. So there's some good ones I gotta brag out. We hit Joaquin Buckley plus 550 for round 2 KO, which was a fun one to hit. Let's see. We also hit the parlay with Nascimento, Slava Claus and Lupi plus 294. And then we hit Slava Claus for 2.6 units, Gilbert Urbina for 1.5 units, the under we talked about for 1.2 units, and Timba Garimbo for 1 unit. Started the night off hot, man. It was a lot of fun. Ended up just between 4.5 and 5 units on the night. The week before that, I was up 2.18 units. So we're starting to catch a little hot streak here.
We're catching fire going into UFC Vegas 74, the first card of June. After that, we got a pay-per-view card after that. And then it's all hell breaks loose after that. We were getting some good cards moving forward into the summer. So make sure you hop on the double leg premium. And if you want to get the best odds, you can go to betopenly.com where you can get 1% juice. There's no house, so you're betting peer-to-peer. And all the odds we just displayed, those are the best odds you're going to find anywhere. So make sure you go check that out. The link for that will be down in the description as well. You can follow the Double Leg on all the medias at the Double Leg on Instagram and TikTok to keep up to date with all the short form content, videos, reels, Instagram posts. You can follow me on all the medias at HeyJaiPicks. That's Instagram, TikTok, all your favorite medias at HeyJaiPicks. Where can they find you?
I've now changed it to where on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, the Parlay MMA.
There we go. Till we see you in the recap of UFC Vegas 74, Double Leg signing out.